Right off the bat, let me just clarify some things. Wipe my hands of the nostalgia-covered shit that's currently coating them. I fucking love the original Final Fantasy VII. It was basically my entire life when I was a kid. I wrote stories about it, I had Final Fantasy themed parties, my friends and I would all pretend to be characters and beat the shit out of each other. It was great, and suffice it to say, I'm a massive fan of the game. I love it. To this day, I regard it as my favourite game of all time, if only for the sheer impact that it had on me growing up. That being said, I never held the remake to an unreasonable standard. Sure, seeing Cloud and the gang thrust into the modern era was exciting, and I was excited for the remake, but I held the reservation that it would never live up to any expectation that I had in my head. Video games have limitations. Well, not as a whole, but gameplay in video games definitely has limitations, and there's no way that the developers at Square Enix were ever going to satisfy their fanboys. If they stuck to their turn-based system, they'd be turning off the ADD-riddled, Ritalin-popping, can't sit down and focus on anything for more than 2 seconds people of today. Simply put, the original Final Fantasy VII is fucking outdated. It was unfinished back when it was released, being held together with gum and the fleeting hope of the employees that made it, and it fucking shows, man. The translation issues alone are enough to date the entire game, so the gameplay itself, while it worked back then, would be fucking atrocious now. The combat in the original worked because back then it felt fast-paced. It felt like every decision was important. Like if you weren't paying attention, the world could end. Nowadays, looking back on it, it's slow as fuck. It takes 2 years to do anything and there isn't much strategy involved once you've got the basics down. Sure, that works for the fanboys like me, who enjoy going back and playing the game, getting that nostalgia trip, coming all over the screen, and then tucking the game back behind some old VHS tapes like the whore that it is, only to be used when that itch for another nostalgia trip comes back. But it doesn't really hold up by today's standards. Changing the way that the combat worked and making it fun is one of the best things to come out of the remake by far. Speaking of things that the game did right, let's just talk about some cool shit before I satisfy my ego by tearing down the game. The game looks fucking incredible. The level design works for what it is, the landmarks and locations are full of detail that bring out the best in the original's design, and overall, the game looks and feels like a love letter to the original. Kinda like saying, hey, we respect what you did, let's make it better. This can also be said for the soundtrack, which makes me harder than a log and gives me twice as much wood. When I first heard Hip Hop de Chocobo, I about fucking shit myself in excitement. I mean, just listen to it. If that doesn't make you want to get up and fucking dance, I don't know what does. It's amazing. I was expecting remasters of the original soundtrack, sure, but entirely new songs that just they feel like they were already there to begin with, if that makes sense. I don't know. All the songs in the remake are fucking great. The character designs look great, the personalities of those characters mostly live up to the originals, and the combat is so much fun. To me, it felt like Final Fantasy XV was a test drive, an experiment, which honestly it pretty much was. They took that energetic style of combat that 15 gave us and injected it with some cool as fuck ideas. Where 15 fell flat on making the characters' combat feel different and unique, the remake made each character feel like they contributed something different to the battlefield, which in turn makes the combat engaging and enjoyable. Now that we've got some compliments out of the way and I have thoroughly tipped my hat to the devs for giving us some unique gameplay, I really want to delve into why this game makes my fucking blood boil. Before I get knee deep in some hate speech, I need to clarify that while I love the story of the original game, fuck is it convoluted. It's fucking stupid. Let me just lay that out there. It's a bunch of high concept fantasy nonsense that tries really hard to be profound. If you don't like the story of the original, I completely fucking understand. It's confusing, it relies heavily on convenience, and it's all over the place. That being said, the way that they tell the story in the original is outstanding. The game is massive, it spans 3 entire discs, it's easily 40 to 60 hours worth of content, and you travel the entire world doing shit. The remake isn't that. The remake covers the Midgard section of the original, so I'll catch you up on what exactly that means right now. In the original game, Cloud is a mercenary who joins an eco-terrorist organization called Avalanche and has a gay old time exploding some shit to piss off Shinra, the evil mega corporation that's sucking up juices from Mummy Planet and using it as electricity. The Midgard section of the original follows this story. Cloud is an avalanche, Avalanche blows up reactor, Avalanche escapes, Avalanche blows up a second reactor, Cloud fall down and hurt his knee, Cloud meet Aerith, Cloud fights Turks who are looking for Aerith, Cloud takes Aerith home, Cloud and Aerith return to Avalanche. Before they can, they see Tifa, a member of Avalanche, get kidnapped and escorted to Wall Market. Cloud and Aerith investigate. They need to infiltrate Don Cornea's mansion to rescue Tifa. Cloud dresses up like a cute girl. They rescue Tifa and uncover that Shinra is going to destroy a portion of the city to get rid of Avalanche. They run back home, fight Turks, part of the city goes boom, Aerith gets kidnapped by Shinra, they go rescue Aerith and meet Red 13. Finally, they escape Shinra Tower and flee into the overworld, where their adventure continues. This section of the game takes about 5 to 10 hours to complete, depending on how much fucking about you do, and this general story is where the remake takes place. Now, here's the concern that everyone had before the remake was released. But how'd they gonna make a game out of such small amount of time? They want our money! Yeah, of course they want your money. They're a fucking business. But that's besides the point. The solution to this whole Midgard section only being at most about 10 hours is to draw the game out as long as fucking possible and make it an absolute chore to do anything. At first, it's small sins, tiny crimes that don't seem too bad just to rope you into the game. Little things here and there, small amounts of foreshadowing to tell you what's to come. Opening certain doors requires you to spend like fucking 4 seconds holding down a button. Sections of the map require you to crawl slowly through crevices or crouch under debris. These small little time wasters that slow the pace of the game to a crawl are warning signs, telling you to leave while you still can, to flee from the horror that is to come. Imagine this, if you will. A fast-paced combat encounter where you're fighting a boss and boom, bullets are flying everywhere and meow, rockets are exploding and boom, shing, you're hitting shit with your sword and using magic and it's fun as fuck. Now imagine pushing forward on your joystick while watching Cloud slowly inch his way through a crack in the wall. That, my friends, is the dichotomy of this fucking game. The game gives you a false sense of power. The cutscenes show the characters doing inhuman and impossible things like leaping into the sky of falling debris, cutting open buildings, jumping farther and higher than any human could dream. And then, when the very same characters are within your control, they're sluggish morons who can't even jump. I wouldn't care, honestly. I wouldn't care if there was no jump button in the game, if the game didn't show the characters leaping into the sky every cutscene. I understand that there needs to be limitations. I get that. I understand that there's probably shadow loading going on whenever you're forced to crawl under an obstacle or slowly inch your way around a cliff. I understand that. But it's fucking boring. I'm sorry, but don't make the characters do all this cool shit in the cutscenes, and then when they're handed off to us, we're limited to, I don't know, button prompts to hop over the smallest obstacle. It's a logical inconsistency that blows my mind. I don't understand how they made this game and didn't think, hey, don't you think it's stupid that the players can't do any of that cool shit in the cutscenes? And yeah, when you fight airborne enemies, your characters will leap into the air and start kicking them or swinging swords or whatever. But how is that different from a normal attack? Besides visuals, you're functionally doing the exact same thing. You're pressing a button and an attack is going through. You don't have any control over how high you jump, where you jump, or anything of the sort. When you press the button, your character just kinda sticks to them like glue. The remake's problem is that it's a disappointment wrapped in a silk cloth. It's a blonde twink wearing a silk dress. Yeah, I'll still fuck it, but that boy pussy just ain't the same, you know? They're so focused on making sure that everything looks cool that they pay no mind to whether or not it feels cool. I'm not here to watch Cloud jump through the air and slice open buildings. If I wanted to do that, I'd go and watch Advent Children. I'm here to vicariously live through Cloud, to get that rush of endorphins associated with doing sick shit in video games. It's a poor comparison, but my mind is brought to the mechanics of Dishonored. That game looks like dog shit compared to Final Fantasy VII Remake. The story is atrocious, but the gameplay is so enjoyable at its core that I've put 150 hours into it. Instead of looking at a predetermined path and pressing a button to initiate Corvo to slowly teleport to the location, I'm just teleporting. I press a button and bling bling bloom, I'm there. Give me that same feeling, Remake. Let me back in the house. It's cold out here and I want to love you. Visually, this game is stunning. Me like you very much, you Tifa titty. But mechanically, fuck, it's boring. Outside of combat, which is where you spend most of your time, there's nothing to do. The side quests are dull, they're inane filler with nothing to add to the overarching plot. There's nothing to gain from doing all of them besides the very basic rewards, and there's no real payoff to them. The only thing that really changes is some basic dialogue from passing civilians. It's filler, pure and simple. It's designed to waste your time. Instead of well-crafted, interesting, or thought-provoking stories, you're handed a checklist of monsters to kill, cats to find, and NPCs to talk to. Why the fuck are there even side quests? I know this is very, the original didn't, but fuck, I'm so glad I didn't have to put up with any of this bullshit in the original. That brings me to the next topic to complain about. Filler. Fuck man, the game is just filler. I took my time with this game, sure, but in the end it took me 40 hours to complete. This is a 5 to 10 hour game masquerading as a 40-hour game, and I'd love to hear someone try and dispute that. The crane section, the airbuster section, the train graveyard section, the fucking climbing to the Shinra building section. Every story beat, every single one is separated by a massive amount of meaningless filler that adds nothing to the game. The first indication of this is the airbuster section, where you run between identical looking rooms fighting identical grunts to find identical keycards to go to identical terminals just to do it again. You do that 4 times, when the whole thing could be simplified down to a 5 to 10 minute section. It's stupid, it's unnecessary, and it's adding nothing to the game. The payoff for it is fighting Airbuster, and that isn't even worth it. The whole concept of this section is that you're trying to fuck over the completion of Airbuster by removing certain parts of it. But I feel like nothing about the fight changes. I feel like it's just some trickery bullshit to make you feel like your actions have impact when they don't, which I also feel like this game is full of. This game is nothing but mindless, tedious filler intercut with a story that, while it stays true to the original in some regards, goes off the fucking rails. The last thing that I want to endlessly complain about is the story. I never had high expectations for the story. There was no way they were going to stick to the original beat by beat, and I was happy with that. That was completely understandable and acceptable. They said they wanted to go in a different direction with it, and I completely backed that decision. But Jesus fucking Christ, what the fuck is going on with this story? The pacing of the Midgard section in the original is amazing. It's a slow burn that brings the party members together in a very genuine way that makes you feel like everyone is invested in stopping the planet from being destroyed. Everyone that joins has a genuine reason to, and it's not even until after the Midgard section that Sephiroth begins being involved in a more hands-on way. Which honestly sets him up as this perfectly eerie villain because it feels like he can do anything. The original makes Sephiroth feel like a terrifying entity that can be anywhere at any time and fuck your life up. He kills the president of Shinra, for fuck's sake. He kills someone that Avalanche has been trying to kill for years, really easily, which just cements him as this terrifying villainous power outside of the party's league. In the remake, he's a fucking weird psychopath that makes Cloud hallucinate and spouts utter fucking gibberish. Please, Sephiroth, shut your mouth. Please, Square Enix, please stop trying to make the remake Sephiroth into Advent Children Sephiroth. I know you like him, I know you like Advent Children, but please, calm down and let him take a backseat until his presence is earned. Sephiroth in the remake has more screen time in 2 hours than he did for like the entire fucking first disc of the original. Stop making Nibelheim references, stop making Cloud hallucinate, stop trying to make him a villain in the first 3 seconds of the game, because it hasn't been earned by the player. Sephiroth's involvement in the story should be earned. We should slowly learn more and more about him as time goes on, rather than him showing up and spouting bullshit at Cloud in the first hour. The problems I have with the story don't become apparent until you venture towards the end of the game. There are these things, these ghosty goos called whispers, which appear throughout the whole game. Apparently, they're supposed to be arbiters of destiny, created by the planet to ensure that the fate is fulfilled, no one dies before their time, etc, etc. To me, it feels like Square Enix's way of telling their audience to shut the fuck up. It's their way of saying we can do whatever the fuck we want, it's our IP, your expectations of the story mean nothing to us. It feels like a cop-out. A way for them to change the way the story goes without repercussions, and have it explained away with the story built Deus Ex Machina, whilst also trying to shove them into the main plot. Confronts the crew, and spouts some more nonsense before basically saying, "Come at me, bro," at which point you're faced with the most fucking Kingdom Hearts boss I've ever seen. I get it, Tetsuya Nomura. You get off to big-ass boss fights that are the most unenjoyable things in the world, but did you really have to bring it into the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Literally, you walk through a magic doorway made of light, and end up in a fairyland where anything can happen and Midgard gets destroyed. Then you fight some giant fucking monster, but not actually, because you're just fighting 3 mini-bosses instead of a multi... Oh, fuck. It's stupid. Finally, after defeating the boss, but not actually because you're just defeating 3 little bosses, you fight Sephiroth. First by yourself and then with your friends. Finally, they do that bit from the original where Cloud and Sephiroth go into a void and they have a little 1v1 before Sephiroth fucks off. But I don't understand it. In the original, it's supposed to be Cloud confronting Sephiroth in himself and ridding him once and for all, right? In this, it's just, oh, it happened in the original, so we have to do it now. Why did any of it need to happen? Why did we need to fight Sephiroth? The only hunch I've got is that they think that if they don't include Sephiroth, then people will feel ripped off, which, yeah, sure, I can get behind that. People are fuckheads. But if it's your intention to make at least 1 more, if not 2 more games, then why not just let this end with the fight with Genova's clones? Right now, it just feels like Sephiroth ain't that big of a deal. You know why? Because we just kicked the fucking shit out of him and he ran away. Fuck. This game just turns into Kingdom Hearts at the end, and it needs to just stop. I will say though, there is one moment just before the credits roll that gave me more entertainment than the entire game did. Fuck this game.